This is the Summer of Nolan on the One Week Rental Podcast. We're looking at 9 films directed by Christopher Nolan, starting out today with Memento. In this video, we're going to give our big picture thoughts on Christopher Nolan and then take a fine look at the history of Memento, look at Christopher Nolan's earlier career, his movie following, and then Memento, the big breakout hit starring Guy Pearce. And then we talk about how its themes connect to Nolan's later filmography. All of that is coming up in this history video about Memento on One Week Rental.
I'm trapped in space, or in a dream, or in a hole. I can't do anything. My wife is dead. It wasn't me. I'm on a beach, and I can't ever leave. I built a bomb, a Batman bomb. What have I done? Turns out the bomb is me. Soaking up the sun with Christopher. Enjoying surfing sand with Christopher. Licking up our time with my friend Christopher. You know it, it's Christopher.
This is
the story of a girl.
This is the story of a girl who cried a river and drowned the
whole world.
Drown the whole world. Yeah. What an auspicious start to our Christopher Nolan miniseries. Welcome to One Week Rental. This is the best time of the year when we do a summer miniseries. 2 years ago, it was Steven Spielberg. Last year, it was The Rock. This year, it's the Summer of Nolan, baby.
And we like to dive in and really get to know this man behind the work and just start just getting real parasocial about it and diagnosing him and everything. But you know what I think we're actually discovering is ourselves.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what we're trying to answer this question. Christopher Nolan, what's up with him?
What you doing?
What's his deal anyway? But in the end, we really just learn about ourselves, that we are trapped in a dream or in space
and
or on a beach.
And all we do is project. Also, I'm not wearing any underwear. Unrelated to this.
I'm Matt Stokes.
And I'm Laci Roth.
And this is One Week Rental. Every week we spend 7 days with a movie, obsessing over that movie, researching it, learning all about it.
Pictures of it, tattooing it to our bodies in different fonts for some reason.
In case we forget. Yeah, and sometimes we have to be like, this doesn't make any damn sense. Oh, I'm standing in front of a mirror. It spells Memento. That was Christopher Nolan's second movie.
And then I'm standing there with awesome minty breath thinking, I thought it said Mentos.
No, you got to read the fine print, by which I mean the letters.
I'm dyslexic. I'm going back, forth. It's fucking me. Yeah, I just want to know about the night that Lenny went to get the big fucking old English tattoo across. He really wanted to remember that point. I don't even remember what it is.
I figure he was very.
It's not that one.
No, it's not that one. I think he was upsold by the tattoo artist.
I think
on
so.
That
I think
one,
it was just a really enthusiastic person that didn't understand why he was doing it. And he's like, no, this is the only body I have. I have to. Oh shit.
No, he bought extended warranty and stuff on that tattoo, stuff that doesn't exist. He bought the Geek Club support for the tattoo.
I gotta get us.
But yeah, about this podcast, One Week Rental, we tell you all about the movie. But during the summer, we do things a little bit differently. And if this is your first time with us for the summer, it is our favorite time because we get to dig in on an individual and answer that question. What's up with that guy?
What's up with that guy?
We settled on Christopher Nolan, and then I got worried that when we dug into Steven Spielberg, and then I think especially with The Rock, these are deeply neurotic men, and we like that. We like our neurotic, fucked up men.
We
fucked
feel
up
cozy.
in a good way. Yes, we cozy up.
Oh God, I think I know what you're going to say.
What?
Is Nolan well-adjusted?
Yeah, so this was actually my concern the more I dug into him. Is this just kind of a normal, well,
then I've got
he's got
theories.
his shit together. But I'm No. I think there's so much to dig into beyond his movies. I mean, the whole point of this is we look at the movies and then try to weave a broader story about...
Even if he doesn't see it, we'll see it.
About what makes these people tick and what are they trying to say and what do they not understand that they're about themselves that they're nevertheless communicating to us.
Maybe what's up with Nolan is that he's stupid.
Why do you think he's stupid?
Because maybe he thinks he's making these think pieces, these really complicated, oh man, people are gonna have to watch this more than once, and he thinks that makes it smart. But that's what a stupid person would think.
That is one of the wrinkles that I think is interesting. Now, I don't think he's stupid. I think he's very smart and a very talented filmmaker.
Damn it.
There's a fucking bug. Like
we
on Mike
live
Pence.
in the swamp.
But as we watched Memento last night, and Laci got mad at the movie.
I did not.
She said this movie's for dumb people who think they're smart. And I think that's well,
I didn't see it in 2002. That would have made a difference. It fucking won an MTV award and shit. Like it was important. People liked it. It was unlike other things that had come before. And it was like, oh shit, we got a new one. You know, I think even then we were like searching for the auteurs, even though we were swimming in them and didn't appreciate what we had. But it was like, oh, Nolan's kind of different. Yeah, but I would have been a teenager then, and that's exactly when I would have thought, this is a smart ass movie.
Yeah.
What I got mad about is that I did all kinds of homework during the movie, and the teacher didn't even ask for it at the end of the fucking class. I'm like, why was I paying attention?
because it's a noir, and that's the point of noir.
It's a noir. Do you know how many times I've watched a neo-noir only for someone to tell me that that's what it is, and I had no fucking idea? Shouldn't I be aware that's what I'm watching?
You weren't aware that it's a noir? I mean, like, just, oh, hey, they seem to be... Okay, I mean... Noirs tend to have very, very convoluted plots and often are very difficult to follow because they are about the experience of being caught up in a web that you can't fully wrap your head around. But that can make them frustrating if that's not what you're into watching. If you want to watch something to get answers, this movie concludes by saying there's no answers. And if you got an answer, it wouldn't satisfy you. In fact, Lenny, you got your answer. You already did, and it didn't mean shit to you. Oh. And that unlocked something for me about Nolan, which is I think he makes movies. He's so
searching.
He's so dominant in like film culture conversation as basically like the only director people pay attention to anymore. Because he makes movies that seem like puzzles. People online gobble them up and try to solve puzzles.
He's itching their conspiracy brain.
But I think... If you go back to our episode about The Shining, we said Stanley Kubrick would be furious at the people who try to solve The Shining.
Nolan's the opposite.
No, I don't think Nolan wants his movie. I think Nolan would say, if you're trying to solve the puzzle, you're missing the point.
Right, because these are movies about searching and looking for the thing that will fill the need that you feel in your heart. And the point is, you probably already found what you think you were looking for, and it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
There's no new version of it.
If you got what you say you want, it's not going to mean anything to you. And I didn't remember the Memento ending that way. And it really, I've only seen it a few times, but I find the last like 2 minutes to be the most interesting part of the movie by far.
Yeah, it's a weird movie where after the second half it gets good. And where I thought the whole thing was just going to be like this, like, woo, yeah, fun. But it's challenging. The way that it goes backwards, but it also goes sideways, and it also goes frontwards, like less far than it did the time before. And then it's hard to grasp how long he's like actually holding on to memories. Like he was able to spend a night with a woman and not understand and not be confused why he was fucking somebody. So he was able to hold that in his head. But then sometimes when it fits the plot, it only takes 30 seconds for him to reset. I don't know. It's not consistent.
Is it? I don't know. I feel like that's the kind of thing he would be very consistent about, but maybe not. And maybe that's just not the point. And it is also, it's a movie, and movies are like, movies play with time too. When you're watching a movie, you're not watching something that occupies real time, and he's obsessed with time and he's obsessed with movies. Those are his two great subjects. You hear Christopher Nolan. What do you think?
This movie will be a little challenging. I'll have to pay attention, but that I'm in good hands, I guess.
Why do you think they're so popular, though?
It's like he's the smart blockbuster guy. It's like if Fincher's a little too avant-garde, I don't know if that's the right word, and then Spielberg's a little too blockbuster wholesome, and you just smush the two together, and you've got smart wholesome, or like you've got something for the whole family. I don't know. Like I think his movies are thought of as like fun, or at least like they stick with you. They matter in the culture, even if you're not sure why. No one laughs at him. He's not a joke. Where like you've got like your Tim Burtons, who at first were like so praised and then turn into kind of a joke. And I'd say Nolan's just a safe director to admit you like, and no one's going to be like, what? He's found a way to make a bunch of mess that still appeals to a lot of people.
I guess I want to try to figure out what exactly though is he doing that other filmmakers are not, that does translate to that broad audience.
Mm-hmm.
Why does his biopic of a physicist in the 40s make $1 billion? And one thing that I'm thinking is more and more interesting about him is he seems like he feels a little guilt that he's the only one who gets to do it. That he talks about the responsibility of getting to use all this wonderful technology and shoot on film and shoot on entirely on IMAX and all these expensive locations, use in-camera practical effects, make movies the way David Lean made movies in the 50s. But if you know you're the only person who gets to do that, how does that make you feel? Don't you feel like there's not
like Oppenheimer?
I'm not that special. I'm good, but
I just keep getting lucky.
But wouldn't it be nice if like this, if me making these successful movies meant lots of other filmmakers also got to make big movies this way?
It does put a lot of pressure on him to like make the most of it for everyone. That's not fair.
And it's not trickling down in any way. It's just he's the only one who gets to do it.
Okay, but like, so aren't there ways? Shouldn't he be like taking people under his wing? Shouldn't he be mentoring more people? Shouldn't there be executive producers or co-directors or like? There's got to be a way. I mean, he's not good at training, but if their name's on a project and he knows his project's too good, then that's got to help them, right?
I don't think it does. And I don't know of any.
So you're saying Nolan himself is IP?
Yeah.
Yeah. His name is cash in the bank.
And I don't think he likes that.
Right.
I don't think he's like torn up about it, but I think he does feel something about it. And I think that's why he relates to Oppenheimer so much. And why he is the heir to Spielberg, because both of them had this early career movie, Jaws for Steven Spielberg in 1975, Batman Begins for Nolan in 2005, that while these movies are good, they arguably changed the movie industry for the worse. And I think Nolan feels a lot of guilt about that. And Spielberg, while not feeling guilt, is kind of like, that's funny. And then they both go on to make movies commenting on that. I think Jurassic Park is kind of a comment on Spielberg being like, we didn't know what we were doing. We never asked if we should do this. And then with Nolan, it's Oppenheimer. Should I have made Batman Begins and started the era of blockbuster superhero movies?
Let me undo it by taking a historical movie and making that a blockbuster. At least maybe we'll be doing this more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll look forward to the people who invented penicillin movie coming out. I'm trying to think of other things I remember in my history textbooks.
Yeah,
I remember the bomb.
And when I heard he's making an Oppenheimer movie, I thought, well, that sounds boring, before knowing that it's kind of, he says, this is a heist movie. It's got the energy of a heist movie. You assemble the team to do a project. And that's one of the reasons that movie is so fun. God, there's so much to fucking say. I'm overwhelmed. But the good thing about this is, yes, we have so much time. And this episode is going to be about Memento, but we wanted to sort of give some big picture thoughts on Nolan up at the beginning. Before we get to the movie, subscribe, everybody. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave reviews, all that stuff. Thank you so much.
Do it before you don't remember to do it.
Exactly.
Tattoo it to your leg.
Take a Polaroid of your review and send it to us.
Oh. And there's no other way to find out if I ever put on underwear. If you don't
No, I
get
won't
all
tell
the way
you.
to, it's not up to you. And you won't know. Only my doctor's going to know.
That's between a woman and her doctor. It's a private decision.
I'm going to go to my OBGYN.
And finally, our theme song. We have a theme song, and as always, we love our beautiful musical collaborators, TJ Barons.
They're so beautiful.
On the ones and twos, and Wade Hemel, my bandmate, playing the drums and the tambourine.
Did
and
he?
Going woo ooh ooh, and
such
just
a good
taking my insane ideas and making them good. And to Laci for singing as well.
I'm mainly I'm the commentary on the song. I'm the talking.
You're the ad-libber. You're the sporty spice.
I'm getting crazy.
I'll be there.
Oh, I wish.
So, ready to talk about the history of Memento? Let's do it.
It's the only part of it I'll remember.
Christopher Nolan. Who is Christopher Nolan?
He's only 5'11". Oh, God.
That's how tall I am.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. No. Well, he's born in 1970, Matt, so that makes him 55 years old right now.
Yeah,
and
he is.
His wife, Emma Thompson, who is
Thomas.
not the girl from Harry Potter. That's all I know because it's all on the screen. You told me they're a little duo.
Yeah, they're a little duo. They're always together. She is his producer. She's produced all of his movies. Any footage of him working on set, she's usually there. They went to school together in London.
Aww.
In this photo of them from the late 90s, does he not look like Leonardo DiCaprio?
Does look like a smushed, sad Leonardo DiCaprio.
And in Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio looks very much like Christopher Nolan. And in that movie, everybody, I didn't make up this theory. Lots of people subscribe to it, that movie, everybody corresponds to the role on a movie set. DiCaprio's the director, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's the producer, et cetera, et cetera. But Christopher Nolan, born in 1970, grew up split between two worlds, England and America, because his father was a British advertising executive, literally had Don Draper's job. He was a creative director. And then his mother was an American flight attendant. And they split time between London and Chicago. So
Bet they got a good deal on those flights.
They must have. That must be why they were always doing
Smoking in the sky. Doesn't sound like fucking amazing.
He's the middle child. His older brother's name is Matthew, aka Matt, and his younger brother is Jonathan, aka Jonah, who is his frequent collaborator. Jonah. Grew up, right. Okay. Jonah grew up more in Chicago. So the weird thing about the Nolan brothers is Christopher sounds like this posh British gentleman. And Jonah's like, hello, pleased to meet you over there. Let's go catch a game with the Cubbies.
Okay.
But what about that other brother? What about Matt Nolan?
Oh, God.
All right. Well, Matt Nolan was accused in the 2000s of a check kiting scheme.
God, I know what the fuck everything goes back to Leo. So he's a catch me if you can.
This is such a Frank Abagnale scheme. So he would open a bank account in Costa Rica, write a check from that account, deposit it in a bank in Chicago, then withdraw the money from the account because there's always the time before the money actually clears. The bank will let you take out a certain amount of money, and then the check bounces and he runs away. And ultimately, he got about $600,000 via this scheme. This is from a 2010 article in the Sunday Times. Matthew Nolan is believed to have stolen at least $600,000. He would name drop his brother, Christopher Nolan. My brother, Chris, is shooting a movie in town. I believe it's called The Dark Knight. Maybe I can get you some tickets to the premiere. Now, he was arrested in Chicago and held awaiting extradition to Costa Rica because he was accused of having tortured and murdered a man there. This from the Sunday Times. Quote, Nolan has been in federal jail in Chicago awaiting extradition to Costa Rica since February this year. In March, he was discovered planning his escape from the Metropolitan Correctional Center, a prison notoriously difficult to escape from. According to the authorities, a search of Nolan's cell discovered 31 feet of improvised rope, which had been braided together from bedding, a makeshift harness, and a metal clip of a pen cap, which Nolan manipulated to make a handcuff key. He also had a razor blade hidden in a bar of soap. Local newspapers called it a Batman-like escape attempt.
More like Bane. But by the time you've gotten all that together, just let him go. That's
he tried
cool.
really hard. He wants it really badly.
He did a bunch of things.
Now, eventually, a Chicago judge determines there's insufficient evidence of the murder in Costa Rica to grant the extradition, but he is still charged with 14 months in prison for the escape attempt.
Wait. Okay, so a murder and a what? A torture?
Torture. That he tortured this guy before murdering him.
No, got it. I understand the order of events, but just making sure it was that word.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Now, one more thing about this. After this, Matt Nolan's whereabouts right now currently unknown. His younger two brothers do not talk about him. But one final thing, an alias that Matt Nolan would use during his criminal operations.
Matt Stokes.
His alias was Oppenheimer.
Oh. Wait, before he made the movie? Or
yeah, this is 20 years ago. Presumably, if you grow up with this guy as your brother, he's always up to some stuff. You got to figure, always running some game.
He's so smart. He could be doing anything else. He's eventually going to blow up the world. He's Oppenheimer.
You always know these guys who always have an angle on something. They're always cooking up some scheme to get rich.
The thing about those guys, though, is that they're very smart. Mm-hmm. You don't really run into, when you've run into the dumb kind of those.
Yeah. But we watched Nolan's first movie Following this week, and he made that in his 20s, and they're about con artists and sort of low-level street thugs running cons and games and stuff. And Nolan always makes movies about cons and heists and grifts and femme fatales.
His movies are trying to understand that person, trying to understand his brother.
One can only conclude that This is an enormous part of Christopher Nolan's story that he just does not talk about.
Yeah, I could see him using his art to work that out. I thought for sure his wife was dead. And then you said that bitch is always around. So I was like, well, then what is it?
Yeah, because he's always making movies about a man whose wife is dead or a man who fears his wife is going to die.
Okay, but like specifically the two movies I'm thinking about are like of like this perfect angelic wife and like these weird fuzzy memories of her being perfect. So like that could also just be I have this like feeling and thought that I used to have, like, you know, like Make America Great Again. Like there was a time in my life where things were perfect, like that nostalgia, that false memory of like, no, people were prancing in the fields or whatever the fuck it is it's perfect about days of yore, but that they had a great childhood and he was such a good brother and he was just so fun, but maybe he was always a little bit broken. So he's like, what happened? But the point is, you're just not remembering anything the right way. You're idolizing the past before you knew he did anything wrong, before you had to think about your brother this way. That's the part that's perfect, not him.
Or you got this guy who's just like, you feel like is always poisoning things in your family. Like, why can't you be the well-behaved, well-dressed brother like me, Chris, and my younger Chicago brother, Jonah?
We've got John Hamm and we've got a fucking flight attendant and now this.
But you said, while we watched the movie Memento together, this whole dead wife thing, did Christopher Nolan lose his wife? And I say, no, his wife is his best friend. They've been married for 30 years. She's his producer. She's always with him. And you said, oh, okay. So she's so terrified of losing her.
He is so
terrified of losing her
that he makes movies about
because she is the tether. She is the tether to reality. To because he's somebody who is trying, in both Following and Memento, trying to understand human nature by sort of breaking it into its component parts. What is it? What constitutes someone's identity? In Following, it's a collection of stuff you put in your shoebox. In Memento, it's like, if I can't make new memories, then what even makes a person a person?
Well, you know, it could be one of the situations where he realized when she's around, I'm more palatable to everyone and it just makes my life easier. So, I mean, like the idea that he's always there, I think she's always there, that almost seems like a crutch. And so it's like this fear of she's what makes me cool and people get me and she softens me or whatever it is. That there are so many relationships like this.
Yours and mine.
I constantly find myself in them where like I'm like vouching for the person who's not as socially adept as I am, and I don't mean to be this for that person, but like I love that role. And it's like, well, if I'm going to keep wanting to make movies, you can't die. Do not die. All these movies about you, don't die.
You make me less annoying to people, and I play the role where the guy then comes up to me later and says, she's a lot of fun, isn't she?
You make me less annoying to people too, because I seem like this wild lady who couldn't possibly be domesticated, and it's like they don't really know me.
You're boring and quiet.
I'm boring.
You're not quiet. I'm quiet.
Wait,
you're boring.
no, the boring part was the part I didn't like. Never mind.
No, you're not
boring
quiet.
And loud. How?
You're boring and loud.
Oh, that sucks.
No, I know. We're both boring. We're both boring and don't do anything.
We're just regular people. Yes. I mean, no one's like constantly on. And if they are, guess what? They're annoying.
So here's the other thing that connects him to Spielberg is he didn't go to film school like Spielberg didn't go to film school, but they both have this hugely romantic idea of the movies, the magic of the Grand Palace where you go watch the movie and you're engulfed by the picture.
Wouldn't you also put Tarantino in this? Because his goes beyond. His is like all things people make, even commercials, even he's taken in all the garbage too and the TV. Whereas I think Spielberg and Nolan are like, you got to go to the theater, to the cinema, and be engulfed in it. Well, that's where the magic is. Wouldn't Grindhouse be evidence that he also cares about like the platform? I know he was doing that to help a friend, but I don't know. I just feel like Tarantino gets left out all the time. Like there's this boys club, and how many years apart are Spielberg and this dude? He's closer to Tarantino's age than he is to Spielberg. And he actually looks like him.
Yeah, and when I first came to awareness of Nolan, I very much grouped him in with Tarantino because it was It's weird to think of it now, but until Batman Begins, he was like he's one of these like Sundance guys. He makes these cool little movies like Reservoir Dogs or Memento or Donnie Darko or something.
Right.
Those were the kinds of movies he made, and then Batman Begins happened and he became,
But do you
I
know
only make
it-
huge movies.
Do you know if Tarantino went to film schools? I didn't know if he did. I was just like, let him be in the club, please.
I was just linking the two because of the specific thing where like going to the movies is like church, and Tarantino was more like going to the video store and watching the television is also my church.
Okay, I agree. Wholeheartedly agree, Tarantino.
So they didn't go to film school, but they taught themselves how to make movies by making movies. They made movies as kids. They made movies in college. He and his wife, Emma Thomas, went to the same college, University College London, and ran the film society there. Again, they weren't film students. He was studying English, but he runs the
More
film
like a hobby
society.
club, yeah.
Yeah. But they screen movies at their film society, make money that way, and then use that money to fund their own amateur movies. So one member of the film society, his name was Matthew Tempest, and he wrote in The Guardian in 2011 about his memories of his old friend. Quote, "It was pretty obvious to anyone at the University College London Film Society in the early 90s, which comprised about half a dozen of us in a windowless, airless basement, that Chris Nolan was going places. I thought his career might even go all the way and he might shoot a few adverts before eventually, if he got lucky, directing episodes of The Bill and Coronation Street. That was simply how the UK film industry was back then. The only career path was to worm a way into directing for telly or commercials. It had been generations since John Schlesinger, Ridley and Tony Scott, Adrian Lyne, and Alan Parker had managed to make the leap from London and telly to Hollywood."
Well, you see, our boy Nolan's been making that puddle jump his whole life.
Yeah, no big deal for him whatsoever.
He's got airline miles.
This sort of dead zone where there is no pipeline from the British film industry into Hollywood. Whereas in an earlier generation, there was, and that's where you get your Ridley Scotts and your Adrian Lynes.
Is there a pipeline from any other country to Hollywood? Or is it specifically just that their pipeline is
I don't
working?
know how any of it works
New Zealand?
anymore.
Yeah.
Probably yes, because so many productions are based in Australia and New
Right,
Zealand.
so you end up making like connections because you're there on location.
Chris, however, was different. Not only in appearance, a permanent open-collared shirt and linen suit as an undergraduate, even as the rest of us took pride in our early 90s indie grunge student status, but is in his ambition and focus, end quote. Now, the author of that column also points out that Nolan also stood out because the rest of the film society were into all the artsy European art house movies. Nolan liked Blade Runner. He liked big Hollywood movies. He was a populist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing is people will say, oh, Nolan's so pretentious. So he makes like smart movies. But I don't think he thinks of himself that way at all. He thinks of himself as a Steven Spielberg or a David Lean. I make big movies for everyone, for the populace at large. And that's the main thing I want to do is I want to entertain you. So he works in the British film industry in the 90s in like corporate films, industrial films, works his way through this while shooting his own short films on the weekend and works his way up to financing and producing and directing his first feature film, Following.
With Spielberg, there's all these delightful tales from his family and his sisters of him, like literally since his earliest ability to work a camera, making these movies, and the neighborhood kids watching them and starring in them and all that. And I mean, with Nolan having two brothers, are they very far apart, or like did they also? Do we know yet if he was making these movies at a young age, or it was appreciation, college, then movies?
He made movies as a kid. I didn't find any like cute stories like with Spielberg, but I'm not saying they're not out there. I just haven't found them. But his younger brother also wanted to be a filmmaker and has become one.
Who is who does his brother play in the? So his first movie is called Following, and I see it says and John Nolan. That's his brother.
That's his uncle.
His uncle.
His uncle was he plays the cop. His uncle was a working actor in London. So Following, his first feature film, he pays for it himself, shoots it on the weekends over a long period of time. It's just we get some free time, so on the weekends we go make a movie, shoot it in black and white because we can't afford lights, so we have to use natural lighting. That means, okay, if we do it in black and white, people won't notice that like the lighting doesn't match the colors or whatever. Just how can we make this as cheaply as possible, shooting in like the apartments that belong to our family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
And they make this movie, which you watched this week for the first time. I had only seen it once before, but
I didn't finish the last 20 minutes, and I'm going to because like it is captivating from the very start. Like it's so good, and once I knew it was his very first, I wasn't expecting a ton. I thought he'd throw every trick that he had, but I feel like I feel like it was very measured, very, I don't know, like pulled. It was very professional, and that's so interesting to hear. That is the whole. I feel like that is a through line with all great directors, is that in the beginning they are really, really good at knowing how to use their resources and what they have access to, and then create their idea around it. It's kind of like the way that I'm in awe how you start with the music for your song, like literally the instruments, and then you think of the lyrics, where my brain is the opposite. So it's just, I much more think I could be a director who writes a movie than I could be a songwriter who writes the music of a song.
I can't imagine being a director, but it is funny that whenever I think of directors, that's the part I never think about of just filmmaking, is like all of this, man. You'll hear people say like, what it's all about is spreadsheets and ledgers and stuff. And that's actually how you make movies, is you make your lists of resources and when can we use them and how.
Yes. Well, and ever since being on this podcast and like actually getting to know people who make movies, not a lot of them, but like just a little bit, enough to realize like the people's first and second and third projects that don't quite get there are the way overly like they had the idea before they had the means. And it's when you're having to like pretend too much about what it is you're looking at, it just takes you out of it. There's no, these guys are just walking around a city that they can walk around anytime they want. It's a great sense of place. Like he's literally following, so it makes sense that the camera's just following some guy. It's captivating. We feel like we're doing something we're not supposed to do. And so like even just the story and the characteristics of the characters make everything that you can do for free so much more compelling.
And so modest in its ambitions, but so professional and so precise, and so much he's already structuring his movies in the way his movies will always be structured, in some ways that I find annoying. I think it is frustrating that he insists always on jumping around through time and giving you, parceling out the information at a deliberate pace.
Interstellar is just like a big fucking fuck you. It's like, oh, you don't like jumping through time? Jump through decades, bitch.
Yeah. And what I always forget about this early part of his career is how much he is emphasizing noir in his movies.
Do you think it was just cost?
And I think he's interested in it. He's obsessed with Ridley Scott's movies. He's obsessed with Tony Scott. They both did a lot of noir. He's obsessed with like The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon. And he was also very influenced when he made Memento by The Matrix, which I just watched this week. I mean, I've seen it a billion times, but I watched it this week. And I always forget that The Matrix is a noir, especially for the first 45 minutes. So much of The Matrix, when they're in the real world, is it's rainy.
Before you understand
it's dark streets. It's like mysterious people.
That's why he was drawn to Batman. It's noir, but it makes sense why you'd be attracted to the material to begin with. You know, in that is the superhero story that is literally dark. You could see the darkness in the character in a way that you don't see with, I mean, pick any other one. Superman, Spider-Man are the ones that come to mind.
So it costs $6,000 to produce, and they finish it. Again, it's like they're shooting it over the course of a year or so, just a few hours at a time on the weekend, rather than...
Even the practical nature of that is just, that's just good movie making.
Right, because most people, if they make their low budget first movie, they go away for a week or whatever and just do it all then.
Right, you're rushing. And yes, going back to a project I've learned over my adult years, that always makes it better if I take a break. And even if it's a forced break, like I didn't do it for cognitive reasons, but then I come back and I just see it different.
Yeah. So 1998, this movie makes the film festival rounds. And this is like the golden age of the independent film festival scene. And it gets a lot of praise, makes a hefty return at the box office. It makes $120,000 at the box office.
So he did get a theater release.
He did, yes.
I mean, like, so what if you do well at festivals, you'll get like a limited release theaters?
So he did find a distributor. I didn't write who the distributor was, but
this is like in England only.
No. It screened here too. So this led to his opportunity to make a bigger movie on a bigger budget. And again, this is the golden age of, or maybe right after the golden age of Sundance and Miramax and all of that. But Memento, this is the movie we're actually here to talk about. So the story that Christopher Nolan tells is that he and his brother Jonah were on a cross-country drive from Chicago to Los Angeles, and to fill the time, Jonah started telling him this idea he had for a short story. I'm reading now from this book, Christopher Nolan, the Iconic Filmmaker and His Works by Ian Nathan. Quote, inspired by a psychology class on anterograde memory loss and eventually published in Esquire as Memento Mori, it opens with a striking image. A man wakes up in a motel room. Looking into a mirror, he sees his entire body is covered with tattoos. Rather than designs, they are sentences, notes to self. One of them reads, John G. raped and killed your wife. Jonah knew his brother to be a sharp critic who'd be quick to sniff out the flaw in a story, the cog that didn't fit. But Christopher didn't raise a single objection. There was only more silence before he finally spoke. That's a terrific idea for a movie. End quote. Now, they then go their separate ways with this. They will collaborate in the future, but Christopher's like, I have an idea for how that could turn into a movie. And he writes a screenplay sort of based on the conversation they have right there, before Jonah had really come up with how he wanted to tell the story himself. He goes and writes it as a short story that gets published.
That makes sense too, because it kind of works in this idea of a road trip. The movie does feel like he's always on the road.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
And these like these hotels that are so anonymous that even he doesn't know which one he's at because they all look the same.
Yeah.
And there's 2 hotels in this movie, but like,
and I cannot track it.
I like most people probably think there's one.
Yeah, I always assumed there was just one. And they're just calling it 2 different things, or I didn't even notice. But you know, it's that thing of like, if somebody tells you about a movie that they've seen, and it sounds cool to you, and then you see the movie, and then you think, I liked the version that lived in my head before I saw it. I kind of think of this like this. He really enjoyed his brother telling him that story and things. I'd like to turn what you just said into a movie, because as my understanding is, the published short story that Jonah writes it doesn't have any of the backwards stuff. That's Nolan's idea of like how this is how we'll approach it.
Have you tried to think of the movie of how it would be if you went forward?
There is a version of that on the Blu-ray, and if I get a chance, I'm going to watch it.
I'm having a hard time even because it goes backwards then forwards, backwards, like, and then Tenet really plays with this idea, but like you can't actually just go backwards. You have to then go forward from the back. So that's the problem. It's the stop, start, restart, stop, start. That's why I can't put it all together. It does start. It starts to make you feel.
Makes you feel insane.
But that's why it goes like sad and dark, and you just feel bad for him. Where I feel like the movie opens and you're like, oh, he's a badass who, like, even with this has figured shit out.
Yeah, and I think one of his ideas, one of the reasons he thinks it'll make a great movie is if you tell the story in a certain way, your entire perspective on who this guy is and whether he's cool or whether he's like this cool badass Quentin Tarantino hero is going to be entirely inverted the more you understand about him.
Yeah, and you know there's something up with the car because the actor playing Teddy cannot stop mentioning the car. As if like it didn't come with the package, you know. He's like, oh, easy for you to say. You're in the one in the Jaguar or whatever. But like he mentions it way too many times, and I'm like, okay, that's why, because it wasn't his. It's new in their little game that they're playing. It could have just as easily ended up with Teddy, but it somehow ended up with Lenny, and he hates that. And also, why does Teddy wake? Oh, sorry. I was like, how does Lenny know where his car is? So like, if he didn't get this fucking memory thing before, beep, 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 or a thing on your car, he would just never know
just
where his car is.
Well, and then
know that he has
forget
one.
what he's looking for.
It's literally the on the car that allows him to use it.
He's very lucky he was born when he was. When I think of Memento, I think once Nolan made Tenet, it's like, of course, he's always been into we'll go simultaneously forwards and backwards because Memento is a movie that goes backwards and also goes forwards at the same time. What I had forgotten about is the scenes with Stephen Tobolowsky are shot in black and white. And that's also what he does in Oppenheimer, is he has 2 temporalities. He has the color sequences and then the black and white sequences, which are from someone's different perspective. And then eventually they combine and you'll see scenes that you originally saw in black and white and color and vice versa.
It's in Following as well. He just doesn't do it with color. He does it with the length of the guy's hair. Short hair, long hair.
Yeah. Just I will not be telling a story from beginning to end because that's not the point. Stories aren't Stories aren't to tell you what happened. Joe Pantoliano.
What are they?
Who plays...
If they're not to tell you what happened, what are they? To talk?
They're to tell you how it happened. They're to tell you, to give you an experience. Joe
Experience
Pantoliano.
of wasting my time.
Joe Pantoliano, who plays Teddy, he said to Entertainment Weekly in 2001, he said, quote, "You could re-edit it to go forward. It's extremely linear, but backwards it becomes a why done it, not a who done it." End quote. So I really love that.
He had so much
quote.
energy to this movie. To
Yeah,
the Teddy character.
love him.
He's so different from Lenny. Anyway, I mean, he always pops, that actor.
Christopher Nolan said in 2001 interview, he said, quote, "I went off to write the screenplay and my solution to telling the story subjectively was to deny the audience the same information that the protagonist is denied. And my approach to doing that was to effectively tell the story backwards. That way, when we meet a character, we don't know, just like the protagonist, how he's met that person, whether he's even met that person before or whether or not they should be trusted, that kind of thing." End quote. So it's not just a gimmick. I didn't watch this movie when I was in high school because all the cool kids liked it. So I was very resistant to that. And I heard, it's a movie that goes backwards. And I thought that's a lame gimmick. And no, it's an essential part of the movie. And there's a thematic necessity for the story you're watching.
Oh yeah, you go on such a roller coaster with the two people you get to know, including the fucking clerk at the hotel. I'm like, he's up to some shit too. I mean, anyone that interacts with him can't seem to help but fuck with him a little bit. Or it's not fuck with him, it's exploit him. They all seem to see some usefulness in him.
Yeah, it raises your awareness that like one of the load-bearing beams of just being a human is people are going to remember things. Now, we have a person in our life who's not good at remembering stuff, and
I'm right here.
Not you. Okay. When I tell this, I get uncomfortable telling this person things because I know that they're getting auto-deleted as I tell this person those things.
Doesn't the version of the person that you're seeing right then deserve to know?
Yeah, I know, but it's always like it's stupid. I feel embarrassed like in front of myself. Like, why am I even bothering telling you anything?
Because you're enriching their life in that moment.
I know.
And you're engaging in conversation with that person and they enjoy that.
Yeah, I know. So Nolan writes the script. His wife then sells it to New Market Films, which is an independent studio. They get a $4.5 million budget. But this is just a deal for production, no distribution. They're going to have to go find a distributor at film festivals. So Nolan is extremely influenced by noir, and he's extremely influenced by two popular movies that had just come out, LA Confidential and The Matrix. And indeed, those two movies are where he gets his three main actors in this movie.
Was that Guy Pearce in LA Confidential?
Yes. But their target for the lead for Lenny is the most obvious person of all time.
And I would have eaten that shit up.
Yeah, of course.
Brad Pitt. Was he just about to be in Fight Club?
He would have already been in Fight Club. He passed. They decided we're going to go with lesser names, and so they end up with.
Too stupid. I don't want to do that.
Huh?
I don't get that.
They end up with Guy Pearce, who had done LA Confidential 2 years earlier. Was this big up and coming name. When you look back now, you realize this is a guy who was positioned to be a big movie star, and it just never really happened. And instead, he's been a very interesting character actor, but one of those interesting character actors who has the movie star good looks. And that's kind of what makes them interesting.
Only he could have been an Avatar. Then he could have had that arc.
Yeah.
To that man.
Too bad.
Who was supposed to be a thing, and he only ever ended up was being the guy in Avatar.
I've changed. No,
you didn't change your mind. You still feel that way. He never happened.
No, he never happened. Sam Worthington. No, I now think he was cast because he's kind of anonymous. I don't think he was ever intended to be a movie star because that character's supposed to be anonymous. That character's supposed to be a replaceable cog. Indeed, Jake Sully is someone's twin brother. That's why he gets the role he gets.
I remember.
All right, Guy Pearce told Empire Magazine in 2020, quote, "I got to meet Chris, then I saw Following, then I called him and I said, look, I'm really embarrassed to be doing this, but I hear people tend to respond to this sort of thing, so I'm just going to do it. I'm calling to tell you that I really love this and I'd really love to do it. If my enthusiasm plays any part in you making a decision about who you cast, then I'm just letting you know that I'm really keen. I was so in love with the script and so in love with the idea of doing it that I just felt I needed to express something. It's the only time I've ever done that."
Oh.
And Chris, in his typical non-committal fashion, wasn't going to gush at my attempt at flattery. He just went, "Oh, right. Okay, well, good to know. Thank you." End quote.
Ouch. Ouch.
Guy Pearce was 32 years old at the time, an Australian
turned into
bloke.
a 5-year-old baby after that happened.
Nolan was a big fan of LA Confidential, and Guy Pearce got the part. So in that same interview, Guy goes on to say, quote, talking about why he loves Nolan, quote, not just because of how clever he was and how honest and humble he was, but how communicative he was about what he wanted to achieve and how he was going to achieve it through the technical channels, how he wanted to shoot it, but also equally adept at analyzing and breaking down the emotions of the characters, the moments within scenes, why he wanted to push in on a close-up at this moment, because he felt that that would actually trigger something that somebody saw in a scene 5 scenes ago. I was completely intimidated, completely inspired, completely enamored. I will take this to my grave. I feel so proud and pleased that I got to have that experience because that doesn't come along very often.
Not for you. Sorry.
He was great in the Brutalist. Got the Oscar nomination for that. He was so good in that.
I haven't seen it.
I've worked with
about the kind of like art brutalism?
It's an architecture movie.
No.
I've worked with great people, Ridley Scott, Catherine Bigelow, Curtis Hanson, and they're all fantastic, wonderful people, but Chris is unique, a very special human being. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, end quote. Everyone gushes about Christopher Nolan, the greatest person you've ever met, so interacts beautifully with everybody on the set, so smart.
Just how generous, and maybe this is what his wife does for him, but like to be so open about, I mean, you and I have worked with people who have something in their head and they're almost withholding it to fuck with you, where it's like if they just shared their vision more fully or like walked you through what they were thinking, then you both could just get to the right thing faster. And for him to just like not think anything's obvious, not think any questions are stupid, not think anyone should have an innate ability to do anything, no assumptions. It's just, here's the moment. I fully see this. I think you should do. That's so nice. Like to just be spoon fed in a way, like here's how you're gonna get an Oscar nomination or whatever. Yeah, he sounds very patient and open and not hard to ask a question.
But maybe that knowing everything ahead of time is what turns people off and why they find him so clinical. For example, people point out all the dreams in Inception seem very much like not like dream, like everything's at like these right angles and stuff. Like there's no dream feeling to it. It doesn't feel like eerie dreams. Maybe that is a result of him just knowing, being calculated, figuring these things out ahead of time. It's not that that works for him, but maybe you lose some sort of improvisational magic that can come out in movies if somebody doesn't totally know what they're going to do ahead of time. I don't think it's always good to know every step of the story you want to tell ahead of time.
And to keep your actors in your box and not see what they could have come up with on their own. Sure. You were asking the question, why does he get this right? Why does it work out for him so often? I don't know who does this for him, but I think he's very canny at casting. I think he has a good eye for like who's about to pop or like a big enough name, but not like too much exposure or something. I don't know. It's just the idea to pick Christian Bale for Batman, it was so interesting to me. It's the only thing that made me want to watch it.
Gets good people at the exact right time. Which
That's what I'm
said.
saying. Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar, like at the height of his goodwill, everybody had toward him. Oh, I'd love to see Matthew McConaughey in a space movie. Yeah. And Cillian Murphy, who he'd worked with a bunch of times, was not a big movie star, but he says, you've always been supporting characters in my movies. You're going to be the lead in Oppenheimer. And he talked about being very intimidated by that, never being able, had never carried something like that on his shoulders, but Christopher Nolan knew he could handle it.
I want to say Skinny Lister, and I know that's a band. Isn't he in like network? Like he's in a show everyone likes, right?
Peaky Blinders.
That's Skinny Lister. That's the same
Skinny
fucking
Lister.
thing. Okay.
So The Matrix is the other big inspiration. That's how he finds Carrie-Anne Moss, like her in that movie. So let's cast her. And then she recommends Joe Pantoliano, who is her co-star in The Matrix,
and I guess
for the role of Teddy. And Lacey guessed that, and I gave her 1 star.
Oh.
I only had 1 to give. I'd give her 2 if I had 2.
Okay.
So Memento was very well received on the film festival circuit, ended up at Sundance in 2001, but nobody bought it. Joe Pantoliano said in 2001, like
nobody bought it to distribute it.
If you don't know this, like the actual point of a film festival is we screen films for potential buyers. Like these are movies that don't have distributors yet. So come and watch them and we'll have an auction. Who wants Memento? No, $1.
Okay. Okay.
Joe Pantoliano told Entertainment Weekly in 2001, quote, At the Independent Spirit Awards, I ran into Bill Block from Artisan, and he said, "Oh my God, Memento, you were wonderful." And I said, "Thank you. You going to buy it?" He says, "No." Then I saw Russell Schwartz of USA Films. Russell said, "Joey Pants, Memento, brilliant, baby. Thanks, Russell. You going to buy it?" No. Next night, Harvey Weinstein, "Joey Pants, Memento. You're fucking great. Thanks, Harv. You going to buy it?" No.
Dodged a bullet.
So that was
Miramax would have been good.
That was the big one. Harvey passed on this. This is their bread and butter movies like this.
But Artisan also seem like they do edgy, weird movies.
You mean Artisan?
Artisan.
Yeah. Although Miramax had kind of at this point transitioned into making their own movies that were very boring and had lots of costumes and won lots of Oscars.
Had lots of costumes.
Yeah, lots of little people dress up as Shakespeare and chocolatiers and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Versus the early 90s when they were finding cool independent movies and distributing them. So they passed. The festival ends without distribution.
Everyone dresses up in a movie. They have to wear
That's
clothes.
a good point, Lacey. They do wear costumes in movies. Every movie arguably has costumes.
I think so.
So Newmarket did the very financially risky move of distributing the movie itself. I guess if you don't know what this means, the company that paid to produce the movie is theoretically going to be a much smaller company than one of these big movie studios. So if it wants to distribute the movie itself, distribute means print it, send it to the movie theaters and advertise it, which is just as expensive as producing the movie itself, that they're going to have to come up with the money themselves. That's very risky. That's very difficult to do, but it paid off. It paid off big. Movie made $40 million at the box office and was a huge hit on DVD. And when you put the DVD in your DVD player, it made you solve a damn puzzle to watch the movie.
Are you human? Yes.
It was something, just fucking go backwards and forwards. DVDs were doing this at the time.
I actually remember that. I remember that kind of gimmick.
Yeah, no, the people are going to love this. They're not going to be mad at all that they can't just start watching the movie. That you have to play a fun little game.
Go to Track 99 if you want to hear the rest of this album.
Oh, I love going to Track 99 on Follow the Leader. It's the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just a fucking law in the late 90s that your hidden track is 35 minutes after in the same track as the last track of the album. That was great.
Gotta let it play.
To just hold down on your CD player. Folks, the 90s. We got to go back, though. It was the golden age of America.
We were using the tools we had.
That's Memento. We're going to be talking about Christopher Nolan all summer long, and we look forward to doing it with all of you. If you're watching on YouTube, please look in the description.
Nola.
That we're in New Orleans, Louisiana. Nola. And we're going to keep
near it. Nolan near Nola.
That should have been our slogan. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to hear us talk about Memento and break it down, subscribe to the podcast, link in the description. And if you're listening, thank you. Just keep listening.
You're doing it. You're doing such a good job. What a good listener.